Hi everyone, welcome to Get Creative Commons. This webinar is part of a VCU library series called Advance Your Research for graduate students and advanced researchers designed to help make your research process faster, better, and smarter. A few housekeeping things before we get started. Please let us know in the chat if things are displaying incorrectly. You can ask questions in the chat and we'll do our best to monitor it as we go, but we'll also have time for questions at the end. And finally, a recording of the webinar will be available after this session, and I'll talk about that at the end. But for right now, my name is Carla Mae Crookendale, and I'm the Arts Research Librarian here at Cabell Library. Please note that I'm a librarian, not a lawyer. This session will get into issues related to intellectual property law, and I'll do my best to be accurate, but keep in mind that these laws are complex and they are always changing along with advances in digital technology. To help us, my colleague Hillary Miller, our scholarly communications outreach librarian who has some expertise in this area, is standing by to answer your questions. So now that we've gotten the fine print out of the way, let's get down to why we're here. Today, I'm going to talk about how you can find, use, and create Creative Commons licensed media. So why should you care about Creative Commons at all? Let's just say you're doing a research poster or a presentation, and you want some sort of media, such as images or video, to help you illustrate your points. If you're an artist or a designer, maybe you need music to incorporate into a film or performance, or images to combine in a collage. You want things you can use, edit, or even combine with other media, and most importantly, you want it to be free to use and perhaps to publish in conference proceedings, articles or books, display in a gallery, or post on a website. Creative Commons can help you identify such content. So for the next few minutes, you're going to learn what Creative Commons licenses are, where to find Creative Commons licensed content you can reuse, and how to apply Creative Commons licenses to content you create to share with others. But before we talk about what Creative Commons is, we need to talk about copyright. According to the copyright.gov website, copyright is a form of intellectual property law that protects original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Those tangible expressions include literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works such as poetry, novels, movies, songs, photos, architecture, computer software, and much more. Basically, if it's an original work of authorship, it gets copyright protection in the US as soon as it's made. Copyright doesn't protect ideas, facts, titles, data, or useful articles. A useful article is an object that has an intrinsic utilitarian function. Examples include clothing, furniture, machinery, dinnerware, and lighting fixtures. Those things can potentially be covered by patent law. Copyright may, however, protect any pictorial, graphic, or sculptural authorship that can be identified separately from the utilitarian aspects of an object. An important thing to note is that copyright is not just one right, but it's actually a bundle of rights, copyrights plural. So let's explore those rights. Authors have the exclusive right to make copies of a work, to make derivatives such as translations or adaptations, like turning a book into a movie, to sell or distribute, and this includes posting something on the internet, to perform the work, to display the work, as in an exhibition, and to broadcast the work, as in on the radio or on TV. So that is your bundle of copyrights, and copyrighted materials are often tagged with this C symbol. Please keep in mind that a work can be and probably is copyrighted even if you don't see this symbol attached to it. These are great protections for authors, but can be pretty prohibitive for users of media. However, as authors and users of media, you also have the option of giving away or getting one, some, or all of these copyrights, individually, on an exclusive or non-exclusive basis, for a certain amount of time, or with other kinds of restrictions such as only non-commercial or educational use. And this is where Creative Commons comes in. Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization established to make creative works more widely available to the public by providing free copyright licenses that authors can use to share their work with others in whatever way makes them most comfortable. If the C symbol on the left denotes all rights reserved, the Creative Commons CC symbol denotes some rights reserved. By releasing a work tagged with a Creative Commons license, an author is saying you are free to use that work, but with conditions. Let's explore those conditions and the symbols associated with them. The main condition is attribution. This license lets others use a work as long as they give the author credit. Another condition is share alike. This license lets others remix, tweak, and build upon a work as long as they license their new creations under the identical terms. In other words, if you use images tagged with share alike to create a collage, you're committing to make that collage available to others to use and adapt. Then there is the non-commercial condition. This license lets others use a work as long as it's not for profit. For example, you're not going to stick someone's image on a book and try to sell it. And last but not least, the no derivatives condition. This license allows for others to use a work as long as it is passed along unchanged and in whole. This means no cropping, changing the color, making a translation, adapting it into another medium, etc. Authors are free to apply any of these licenses in any combination to their work. Here are a few examples. Combined in this way, licenses range in degree of openness for users. At the top, CC BY allows you to do anything you want with the work, remix it, even make money using it as long as you give the original author credit. At the bottom, the least open is a CC BY NCND. You must give attribution, you can't use it commercially, and you can't change it in any way. You may notice right at the tippy top, the most open is a license I haven't mentioned. This is the very special CC0 or no rights reserved. I'm going to quote the Creative Commons website here. CC0 enables scientists, educators, artists, and other creators and owners of copyright-protected content to waive those interests in their works and thereby place them as completely as possible in the public domain so that others may freely build upon, enhance, and reuse the works for any purposes without restriction under copyright or database law. It's pretty amazing that there are authors out there willing to do this. So now that we've talked about the options you have as users via Creative Commons, I'm sure you want to know, where do I find Creative Commons licensed media? Well, the lovely people at creativecommons.org have tried to help by providing a search portal that will point you to several databases with Creative Commons content. This is a screenshot of the search page, search.creativecommons.org. You can see some sources you've probably never heard of, like CC Mixter for music or Pixabay for images, but there is also content from familiar sources like Flickr, Google, and YouTube. I'll do a demo of this in a minute. It's a terrific tool, but it comes with a caveat. This portal is not a search engine, but instead offers access to content provided by other independent organizations. Creative Commons has no control over the results that are returned, so do not assume that the results displayed in this search portal are under a CC license. Anyone can use CC licenses. Just because you find an item using this search does not automatically mean you're okay to use it. Creative Commons folks can't control for people who might be posting content to a platform like Flickr or YouTube that they don't own the rights to. So do your due diligence to verify licenses, especially important if you want to publish the work or use it commercially. Some techniques you can use include using a Google image reverse search to try to trace an image's origins, digging into the terms of use policy on a website, or the rights statement attached to a piece of media. Another great option for finding Creative Commons licensed or even public domain materials are cultural institutions like museums and libraries, such as the one shown here. The Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands, the New York Public Library, their digital collections, the Digital Public Library of America, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And then there are scientific institutions like the Nature Publishing Group at nature.com, the National Library of Medicine and other US government organizations, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization in Australia, or CSIRO, has a science image database. And then there's the Public Library of Science. Also useful are platforms that cater to people in creative fields like web, graphic design, and film. The Noun project is where I got a lot of the graphics for this presentation. Pexels and Photopin have free stock photography, and Vimeo has a portal for Creative Commons licensed film. These resources I just mentioned and more are listed on 2 library research guides, Find Art and Design Images and Scientific Images. Please keep in mind that the resources listed on these guides are a mix of copyrighted, Creative Commons, and public domain content. Again, always look at the terms of use or permission statements on each one. Beyond these, now that you're familiar with the CC licensing system, you will start to notice them scattered around all over the web when you're looking for information. So now I want to do some demo searches in a few sources to show you how this works. And this is an opportunity for you to participate. So in the chat, if you wouldn't mind sharing a few keywords or topics that you would like me to use for search examples, and I'll give you a minute to do that. And I'm also curious, what kind of media is everyone interested in? I'm going to assume that a lot of you are interested in images, but are there any other kinds of media that people are trying to use? Mostly images. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Images for Wilma. Video. Okay, we'll look at some of that. And any suggested subjects or topics, just for a trial purpose? A unicorn. Okay. Thank you, Bettina. Dental procedures. Okay. And infographics. Okay. Well, the only specific keywords I've gotten so far are unicorns and dental procedures. Okay. Dental makeovers. Okay. Substance abuse. Okay. All right. So substance abuse might be a little abstract for an image search, but we'll give it a try. And I've got to try unicorn because that's pretty hilarious. And also things to do with dental health or dental makeovers. Okay, well, let's go ahead and have a go then. And let's start with a Creative Commons search. This one, I'm going to go with unicorn. Why not? And we're going to try Pixabay. This is one of the image databases, and I'm going to say that I don't want this for a commercial purpose, so I'm going to leave that box unchecked. But I'm going to say that yes, I do want to potentially modify or adapt it in case I might need to crop it to fit into a presentation or something like that. And let's see what results we get back from this one. So here we have some charming unicorn cones. All right. And just out of curiosity, let's try a different, I should mention that Pixabay is a great resource for images because everything here is available for free use. You can see here a CC0 or public domain license. So that's good to know for everything that comes from Pixabay. Let's try, oops. Dentistry, and let's try a different source here, and let's try Flickr. Okay, so we've definitely got a few showing up in Flickr for, oh, some kind of upsetting images for me showing up in Flickr, but still there is content there. I will say another way that I like to use Flickr is to look directly at the Flickr Creative Commons page. You can see that here. This one is nice because it does spell out all the different combinations of CC licenses that are available. So if I knew, for example, that I did want to use something for a commercial purpose, potentially, I could choose from an attribution or an attribution share alike image. But if I knew it was for an educational, not a commercial purpose, I could choose maybe one of these other buckets of licensed content to search for. So yes, and oh, direct us to the links. So thanks, Hillary, for dropping that into the chat box. And I just had a question as well for people for looking into images of homeless people. So I'm going to try that maybe in another database just to see. This one, I'm gonna guess may not be the best portal for that kind of image. Different databases um, have different strengths, but I did want to show you an example of the how sometimes different databases will help you find the images that are free to use. So this is the New York Public Library's digital collections homepage, and what I like about it is that if you put your search terms in, it automatically gives you the choice to only limit to public domain materials. So if you click that and then you do your search, you should get back images that are in the public domain and that you're free to use. And this is an example of one of those. So I'm going to say, okay, dates of origin. And you see here at the bottom, this is the right statement that tells you that this is in the public domain so that it's safe for you to use. Okay? So that is one. And then another database that's really good for images I wanted to point out to you, and I only discovered this recently from a friend of mine who is a designer, and that is Pexels. This one does a lot of the really beautiful, high quality images that you might expect from a paid stock photography website. It's newer though, and it's kind of a mixed bag, the kinds of information that you might get from one like this, but the images, so we've got bored animals and bored people. I don't know if we have a little bit of a bored group here, but not necessarily a bored audience for Wilma. So, but Pexels, you can see that this is just a really beautiful, more professional level of photography, and that's because these are contributed by professional photographers. So you can definitely take a look at that one. And then for more science-related images, I thought I'd throw in this one, which is an Australian science image database. This is Cicero. And you can see that they make it really easy to find things because they've kind of, on the homepage, showed the different tags that they've tagged images with. So you can also do a search. And since dentistry was one of our potential keywords, okay, so they're saying no images for dentistry, but lots of images for other things related to science, like folks in a lab setting or other things like that. On the Pexels, I had a question about Pexels, and yes, that is just an ad. If you go to learn more about Pexels, you'll see that it's completely free, released under a CC0 license. Okay. So does anybody have questions about any of the resources that I've shown you so far? Since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and mention the Noun project as well. This is one that I used to create this presentation. So it's more graphic icons, and everything on the Noun project is released under a Creative Commons attribution license. So you do have to, it's a CC BY, you do have to give these authors credit, but you can opt to pay for a subscription so that you can use the images free of credit as well. So something to, yes, this webinar will be available, a recording of it, and at the very end of the presentation, I will talk about how to get access to that. So, okay. Did anybody want any other tests or trials of things that I may have mentioned, or shall we go back and talk a little bit more about how to use these licenses? How to use? Okay, well, let's close up some of these search windows and get to the next thing then. So, okay. So now you've seen how to find some Creative Commons licensed media you can use. Let's say you as an author want to pay it forward and share your works with the world using Creative Commons licenses. How do you do that? Oh, sorry, before I go on, I do have a question from Melody about using images and retouching them. When you use any image, even if you choose to remix or edit it, if it's been released under a license that has basically CC BY or an attribution license, you do still have to give credit even if you've adapted it. And just keep in mind that if you were using an image that was released under a no derivatives license, you wouldn't be able to retouch it in any way. You have to use it as it is. So that means that if you're searching for images that you can retouch, you're going to want to make sure that it's not under a no derivatives license. But if it's a Creative Commons license, you're usually going to have to give attribution unless it's been released under that CC0 license, in which case you can do whatever you want to it. You don't have to give attribution, anything like that. Okay. Does that help, Melody? Okay, you're very welcome. Okay, back to using Creative Commons licenses for your own work. So the Creative Commons website does spell out the process on the Share Your Work page, which I've linked here. And basically you choose features, learn about some optional information, and then get your license. But before you commit, you need to understand how these licenses work. A CC license is made up of 3 layers: the legalese, or the underlying legal foundation; a translation into easy to understand language, or the Commons Deed, along with the symbols we've just identified; and finally, a code version that makes your content searchable and easy to find by web crawlers. If you go to the creativecommons.org/choose webpage, the license chooser page will walk you through each step with guidance tailored to the type of content you want to share and suggestions on which portals you could post to. If your content lives offline, you can download CC icon images and recommended license text to add to it. If your content is on the web, you'll get some HTML code to embed the appropriate icon and license text with your content. So now you know how they work, are you wondering, what if I change my mind about releasing my work under a CC license? Well, once something has been published under a CC license, licensees may continue using it according to the license terms for the duration of applicable copyright and similar rights. This is a legal contract. And I don't want to scare you off because, as we've seen, the Creative Commons community is a valuable resource, but you do need to think carefully before you use these licenses and/or choose the kind of license to apply to your work. So now you've learned all about Creative Commons licenses, what they are and how to use them. It's time for you to let us know what questions you might have beyond the ones that you've already asked. Any questions at all? We've gotten some good ones about what if you want to edit an image. Um, do people have questions about, okay, Wilma's asking, you don't remember seeing the icons when doing a, is that a PPT PowerPoint search? How do you know which is applied? I'm not sure I understand your question, Wilma. What, doing a PowerPoint search? Can you clarify that for me? Ah, I see. Um, doing a Bing search. And is this choosing the feature where you can choose CC licenses? Okay, let me try a search and see if I can get to what you're asking about. So I've got Bing here, and I've got, are you talking about doing an image search? Okay. Let's see. This one I am not especially familiar with. I'm going to ask Hillary if she can dig into this a little bit. I will say that Google Images, if you do an image search using Google, hold on, let me see. Let's see. I'm going to say birds, and I'm going to say image search. And if you go to tools, in tools, you can limit by usage rights, and these are going to be similar to the different CC license levels that I mentioned before. So if you say like labeled for reuse, labeled for non-commercial reuse with modifications, these are analogous to those CC licenses. So the idea is that you remember when I mentioned that CC licenses come with HTML code to let you know, to let web crawlers know what content is available under what license. This is how you can limit to things that are findable using those conditions or restrictions. So definitely take advantage of that. And as far as the images themselves, a lot of times if you go to an image's source, it's more likely to have the usage rights listed. So I'm going to use Flickr again as an example, and just the basic Flickr page. And I'm going to search for unicorns. And oh dear, okay. Flickr in general is really good about giving you that CC licensing image. So you can see here, this person has released their work under an attribution, non-commercial, non-derivative license. So, okay. Okay, show details. Or, all right, Hillary, I'm trying to figure this out, but is it the link below the image? I'm gonna say, Hillary, do you mean the title of the image? So I tend to use Google more in my daily life, so I'm less familiar with Bing. Okay. So Wilma, I'm afraid you've given me a bit of a personal stumper. If you wanted to offline share with Hillary and I your contact information, maybe we can troubleshoot this and get back to you. But at least you're aware, a lot of these resources, you do kind of have to dig into the about, the terms of use, the find more information, and a lot of times that is where the usage information will live. So sorry that's not a clear answer, but I hope that's at least a little bit helpful. So any other questions? I do have a little bit more information to share about how to get this webinar and some other workshops that we'll be doing on things related to this topic. So give it a second. If no more questions at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and call it then. So I did want to go ahead and give you my contact information and as Hillary's as well. As I mentioned, I'm the arts librarian, so I get a lot of questions about using arts images, finding arts images. Hillary is our scholarly communications outreach librarian, so she deals a lot with copyright, usage rights, fair use, which is something that we didn't talk about today, but is another exception to copyright that can help you find and use information. So she will definitely be a great resource for all of you. I did want to mention this for those who might be interested in rewatching this webinar. We will put a recording of this, and you can also see past AYR events at the guides.library.vcu.edu/AYR website. So definitely look at that, but I believe that if you are registered for this workshop, you'll also get a follow-up email with a link to that recording. But if you don't get that, you can log on to this website in a day or two and it should be posted there. And then this is just a few of the places that I looked for information about this kind of thing. The CC or Creative Commons website is a great resource, as well as the US Copyright Government Office website. So if you're interested in this topic at all, those are great places to browse around. And then finally, I did shout out to Hillary. She is going to be working with me and also on her own on several upcoming workshops that we'll be doing related to this topic. So you see creators' rights. So what are your rights as creative people? Make use of fair use. This fair use is another exception to copyright that can give you rights to use copyrighted information under certain conditions. And then these are two very special things. We'll have a guest who is an artist and a lawyer doing two workshops for us, Rights and Relationships and Culture in the Face of Publics. Those are going to come up in March. And then finally, Hillary will be doing a session on navigating the permissions process. So let's say you really want to use copyrighted information. How do you go about securing the rights to that copyrighted content? And that's what that session will be covering. So, all right, thanks again for joining us, everyone.